Book 3, Chapter 40, Subtle Body and Astral Travel. Intellectual Body, Details on the Process of Death, Conception and Birth. Vashishta related. The nocturnal fiends infested the gloomy field, and the attendants of Yama, the Lord of Death, roamed about it like marauders in the daytime. Under the canopy of thick darkness, naked and fleeting ghosts, in their nightly abode, reveled on their provisions of carrion that was likely to be taken by the clutches of one's hand. It was in the still hour of this gloomy night, when the host of heaven seemed to be fast asleep, that a sadness stole upon the mind of Leela's magnanimous husband, warring King Vidurata. He thought about what was to be done the next morning in council with his counselors. And then he went to his bed, which was as white as moonlight and as cold as frost. For a while, his lotus eyes were closed in sleep in his royal camp, which was as white as moonbeams and covered by the cold dews of night. Then the two ladies issued forth from their empty abode and entered the tent through a crevice, like air penetrates into the heart of an untouched flower bud. Brahma asked, "How is it possible, sage, that the gross bodies of the goddesses, with their limited dimensions, could enter the tent through one of its holes as small as the pore of a piece of cloth?" Vashishta answered, saying that it is impossible for someone who mistakes himself to be a material body to enter a small hole with that gross body. But it is possible to go anywhere one pleases if he understands that he is only pent up in his physical body like a cage and obstructed by it in his flight. And if he does not believe that he is confined by his material body, but has the true notion of his inner subtle spirit, he who perceives his original spiritual state to be the better half of his body may pass as a spirit through a chink. But whoever relies on the lesser half of the material body cannot go beyond it in the form of his intellect. As air rises upward and the flame of fire never goes downward, so the nature of spirit is to rise upward, and that of the body to go down. But the intellect is made to turn in the way in which it is trained. A man sitting in the shade has no notion of feeling heat or warmth. So one man has no idea of another man's knowledge or thoughts. As is one's knowledge, so is his thought. Such is the mode of his life. It is only by means of ardent practices of meditation and learning that the mind is turned to the right course. One's belief of a snake in a rope is removed by knowledge of his error. The habits of the mind and conduct in life are changed from wrong to right by the knowledge of truth. It is one's knowledge that gives rise to his thoughts, and thoughts direct his pursuits in life. This is a truth known to every man of sense, even to the young. Now then, the soul resembles something seen in a dream or formed in a fancy. The soul is of the nature of air, and emptiness is never obstructed anywhere in its core. There is an intellectual and astral body, which all living beings possess in every place. It is known as consciousness, as well as the feelings of our hearts. It is by divine will that consciousness rises and sets by turns. At first, it was produced in its natural, simple, and intellectual form. And then, being invested with a material body, they together make the unity of the person out of the duality of material and immaterial essences. Now you must know that the triple emptiness, composed of the three airy substances, spirit, mind, and space, are one in the same thing. But not so their receptacle material body, which has no ability to flow or extend. Know this intellectual consciousness body of beings is like the air, present with everything and everywhere, just like your desire to know or extends over all things in all places and presents them all to your knowledge. It abides in the smallest particle and reaches to the spheres of heaven. It reposes in the cells of flowers and delights in the leaves of trees. It delights in hills and dales and dances over waves of the oceans. It rides over the clouds and falls down in the showers of rain and hailstones of heaven. It moves at pleasure in vast space and penetrates through the solid mountains. Its body bears no break in it, and it is as minute as an atom. Yet it becomes as big as a mountain, lifting its head to heaven, and as large as the earth, which is the fixed and firm support of all things. It views the inside and outside of everything, and bears the forest like hairs on its body. It extends in the form of the sky and contains millions of worlds in itself. It identifies itself with the ocean and transforms its whirlpools to spots upon its person. This intellectual consciousness body of beings is the nature of an uninterrupted understanding, ever calm and serene in its aspect. It is possessed of its intellectual form from before the creation of the visible world, and being all comprehensive as emptiness itself, it understands the natures of all beings. It is as unreal as water in a mirage, but by its intelligence, it manifests itself as a reality to the understanding. Without this exercise of the intellect, the intellectual man is as nothing as the son of a barren woman, and as blank as the figure of a body seen in a dream. Brahma asks, what is that mind to which you attribute so many powers? What is that which you say to be nothing? Why is it no reality and something distinct from all that we see? Vasishtha replied, all individual minds are provided with these faculties, except those whose minds are engrossed with the error of the outer world. All worlds are either of a longer or shorter duration, and they appear and disappear at times. Some of these vanish in a moment, and others endure to the end of a kalpa age. But it is not so with the mind, whose progress I will now relate to you. There is an unconsciousness which overtakes every man before his death. This is the darkness of his dissolution. Mahapralaya Yamini. After the shocks of delirium and death are over, the spiritual part of every man is regenerated anew in a different form, as if it was roused from a state of trance, reverie, or swoon. Just like the Spirit of God, for his recreation, after the dissolution of the world, assumes his triune form with the persons of Brahma and Virat, the universal form. So every person after his death receives the triplicate form of his spiritual, intellectual, and corporal being. Brahma said, as we believe ourselves to be reproduced after death by reason of our memories, so we must understand the recreation of our bodies in the world by the same cause. Hence, there is nothing uncaused in it. Vasishtha replied, the gods Hari, Vishnu, Hara, Shiva, and others have obtained their disembodied liberation Videha Mukti, at the universal dissolution, could not retain their memory to cause their regeneration. But human beings, both spiritual and intellectual bodies, entire at their death, do not lose their memory of the past, nor can they have final liberation like Brahman, unless they obtain their disembodied state, which is possible to all in this life, or hereafter only, by the edification of their souls through yoga meditation. Birth and death of all other beings, like yourself, are caused by their memory, and because they lack disembodied liberation and eternal salvation, the individual soul, after its pangs of death are over, retains its consciousness within itself, but remains in its state of unconsciousness by virtue of its own nature. Let's take a moment and review what we have learned here. This is important. It was said in verse 35, the disembodied liberation, Videha Mukti. That is different from Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti is liberation while still living in a physical body. So this tells us when we have Jivan Mukti, we're not done yet, are we? We still have to achieve Videha Mukti. And we must achieve that in their disembodied form. Now it is possible to achieve Videha Mukti while still in a physical body. But that is exceedingly rare. There might be one chance in 100 if you happen to be in Jivan Mukti, that you will achieve Videha Mukti while still in the physical body. So we have set that as our objective, haven't we? What is Videha Mukti? It is Brahman consciousness. This is the consciousness that is the source of this universe. Moksha level 4. Most enlightened beings will only achieve moksha level 4 after the death of the physical body, while they're in the celestial realms. We are fortunate to have 1,000 Videha Muktis who have volunteered to work with us in the Sahasrara Shirsha Brahma, meditation program. These 1,000 will each take responsibility for one of us and strive to help each one of us achieve the Videha Mukti. And why is this important? Because we have the objective of creating Brahma on earth. Sahasra Sirsha Brahma, the 1,000 minds of the Creator, will emerge when we have this group of 1,000 and we are meditating together with a special meditation. During that time, it's going to be a wonderful experience of Videha Mukti. During each meditation, we will have this taste of Videha Mukti. After the meditation, it may fade away. Then, in the next meditation, it'll come back. But eventually, it will become established. We will be able to change the course of this universe from destruction, pralaya, to satya. Something that is very much like the first day of a universal cycle known as the day of Brahma. And when this happens, it will be like a miniature cycle of satya that will last for 10,000 years. This is what Krishna told us when he was leaving this earth at the end of his incarnation 5,050 years ago. Verse 39. The universal emptiness is called nature, Prakriti. It is the reflection of the invisible divine consciousness, Chit Prativibha. And it is the parent of all that is dull or moving, Jada, which are produced by their reminiscence or in its absence, Sansmriti and Asmriti. The former causing the regeneration of living beings, and the latter its cessation, as in inert matter. As the living principle of animal life begins to have its understanding, Bodha, it is called an intelligent being, Mahat, which is possessed of its consciousness, Ahankara. It has added to it the organs of perception and conception, all from their elements, 10 matras, residing in the empty ether. Next, this minutely intelligent substance is joined with the 5 internal senses that forms its body, and which is otherwise called its spiritual or ethereal body. Atibahika or Lingadeha, the astral or subtle body. This spiritual body, by its long association with the external senses, comes to believe it has ordinary senses. So it finds itself invested with a material body, Abhibhaltika Deha, as beautiful as that of a lotus. Then, seated in the embryo, it rests in a certain position for some time, and then inflates itself like the air until it is fully expanded. Then it thinks itself to be fully developed in the womb. Like a man dreams of a fairy form in his sleep and believes this illusion as a reality. Then he views the outer world where he is born to die, just like one visits a land where he is destined to meet his death. And there he remains to relish its enjoyments as prepared for him. But the spiritual man soon perceives everything as pure emptiness, and that his body and this world are only illusions and vain nothings. He perceives the gods, human dwellings, the hills, and the heavens, resplendent with sun and stars, to be nothing more than homes of disease, debility, decay, and ultimate death and destruction. He sees nothing but a sad change in the nature of things, and that all that is living or inert, great or small, together with the seas, hills, rivers, and peoples of this earth, and the days and nights, are all subject to decay sooner or later. The knowledge that I am born here of this Father, and that this is my mother. These are my treasures, and such are my hopes and expectations, is as false as empty air. That these are my merits, and these are my demerits, and these the desires that I had at heart when I was a boy and am now young, are the airy thoughts of the hollow mind. This world resembles a forest, where every being is like a detached tree. The dark clouds are its leaves, and the stars its full-blown flowers. Walking men are its restless deer, and the aerial gods and demons its birds of the air. Broad daylight is the flying dust of its flowers, and the dark night the deep hiding place of its crow. The seas are like its streams and fountains, and the 8 boundary mountains are its artificial hills. The mind is its great water reservoir, containing the weeds and shrubs of human thoughts in abundance. Wherever a man dies, he is instantly changed to this state, and he views the same things everywhere. Thus, everyone rises and falls constantly, like the leaves of trees in this forest of the world. Millions of Brahmas, Rudras, Indras, Maruts, Vishnus, and suns, together with unnumbered mountains, seas, continents, and islands, have appeared and disappeared in the eternal course of the world. No one can count the numbers of beings that have passed away, are passing, and shall have to pass hereafter, or those who are in existence and have come to become extinct in the unfathomable eternity of Brahman. Therefore, it is impossible to comprehend the stupendous fabric of the universe in any way except in the mind, which is as spacious as infinite space itself, and is as variable in the course of events in the world. The mind is the empty sphere of consciousness, and the infinite sphere of consciousness is the seat of the Supreme. Know now the whirlpools and waves of the sea are of the same element as the sea in which they rise and fall, even though in their impermanence they are not of the same durable nature as seawater. So the phenomena is the same at its conception, though none is a reality. The ethereal sphere of heaven is only a reflection of the intellectual sphere of the divine mind, and the bright orbs of the sky are like gems in the bosom of Brahman. Its vault is the cave of the mind of the Eternal One. The world, according to the sense in which I take it as the seat of God, is highly interesting, but not so in your sense of it being a sober reality. So the meanings of the words I and you, according to me, refers to the intellectual spirit, and according to you, to the individual soul and body. So this is an interesting statement. Let's read it again. The world, according to the sense in which I take it, is Vashishta. And Vashishta is Videha Mukti. Vashishta is incarnation of Vishnu. So Vashishta sees the world as the seat of God. And to Vashishta, this is highly interesting. But not so in your sense of it being a sober reality. So now Ram is seeing the world in a different way. And the reason is Vashishta is the silent witness. Ram is taking the role of an ordinary man, just beginning to become enlightened. Not yet knowing himself to be the silent witness. And so Ram is still seeing the world as an objective reality, something that's out there, outside of himself, different from himself. But Vashishta sees the world as his own self, as contained within, as an aspect of the silent witness. When we first began to identify with the silent witness and become the silent witness, we are observing the world as an object, something outside of our silent witness self. We are in the state of Jivan Mukti at that point. Maybe it's just a transitory state, and after our meditation, we lose our connection with the silent witness. But while we are established as the silent witness, we are experiencing moksha. We are experiencing Jivan Mukti. But we now learn that there is a maturing of Jivan Mukti. And it matures into Videha Mukti. And then we see the world like Vashishta does, as the seat of God and as our own self. And of course, that makes it highly interesting, because what is more interesting than our own self? This whole process of self-realization, the most exciting adventure ever. Now, at first, it's not all that exciting. It's interesting. It's something that we're learning about. What is this higher self we hear about? But we're still using the words I and you. We still have subject and object. But at some point, the experience matures into Videha Mukti. And on the way to Videha Mukti, the journey of self-realization becomes an incredible adventure. A little bit like going to visit San Francisco for the first time. You've heard about it. You've seen the beautiful Golden Gate Bridge in pictures. You've seen the bay and the ocean and all the wonderful buildings that are there. But you haven't been there yet. But as you're on the way to it, you begin to see it on the horizon. And then it becomes more exciting, more interesting. And now your attention is riveted on it as you get closer and closer. And that's the way it is, this transition from Jivan Mukti to Videha Mukti. It gets more and more and more and more interesting every passing day. Hence, Leela and Saraswati, being in their empty astral bodies, were led by the pure desire of their souls to every place without any obstruction or interruption. The spirit of consciousness has the power to present itself wherever it likes on earth or in the sky, and therefore objects known or unknown and wish to be known by it. It was by this power that they could enter into the tent of the prince. Consciousness has its way to all places and things, and over which it exercises its powers of observation, reflection, and reasoning to their full extent. This is known as the spiritual and unconfined body, Parivahika, the subtle body, astral body, or mind body, whose course cannot be obstructed by any restriction whatever. Now, what are all these bodies? Well, we know we have, as a human being, a physical body. We have 4 distinct subtle bodies. The human body, physical body, Ana Maya Kosha. Ana means food. Literally, that's how it's translated. Maya. Maya means illusion, that which is not. Why is that word thrown in there? Kosha. Kosha means sheath or covering of consciousness. So there's a lot to be learned just by contemplating the name, the Sanskrit name given to our physical body, Ana Maya Kosha. To really understand what Ana Maya Kosha means, it can open up your awareness to enlightenment, can't it? So much information in those 3 words, Ana Maya Kosha. Then we have the Prana Maya Kosha. Prana, energy, life force. Maya, illusion. So what are we saying here? Oh, this is the body of energy and life force, but it's just an illusion. And it is a kosha. It is covering consciousness. So these are just 2 of our bodies, and yet we know that these 2 bodies are not supposed to be separate bodies. If we look to the model, which is our absolute body in the absolute realm of Goloka, where we all exist as eternal companions of Krishna, there is no pranamaya kosha. In fact, in the absolute realm, our bodies have a different name. There's an anakosha, the material body made of the same stuff as food, ana. It is a covering of consciousness, kosha. But there's no maya. That means not illusion. And there is no prana kosha, because the prana kosha of the absolute body is totally, perfectly integrated with the anakosha. So in the absolute realm, we have one body called the anaprana kosha. All right, let's stop for now.